The salad fork slipped from my fingers and hit the edge of the plate with a sound that felt, in the silence that followed my sister's words so unreasonably loud. "You are a burden, Claire." Melissa said it the way she said everything she genuinely believed, without decoration, without the softening that most people apply to their cruelest thoughts before speaking them aloud. Direct, certain, delivered across a white linen table in the middle of a Friday lunch service, with the casual authority of someone stating a fact about the weather. "You always have been. To Mom and Dad before they passed, to me now. You take, and you never once consider what it costs the people around you." 14 people at nearby tables went carefully still, in the particular way that strangers do when they have accidentally witnessed something private, not looking directly, but no longer pretending not to hear. My sister's best friend, Andrea, set down her water glass. My sister's colleague from her law firm, a woman named Patricia, who had been introduced to me 40 minutes earlier with the breezy confidence of someone who expected to like everyone she met, was now examining her bread plate with focused attention. Melissa held my gaze across the table with the patient certainty of someone who had been waiting a long time to say this in a room with witnesses. "My name is Claire Navarro. I am 31 years old, and this is the story of how my sister called me a burden at a Friday lunch. In a restaurant that has had my name on its deed for the past 3 years, Melissa was 4 years older than me and had been, for as long as I could remember, the version of a Navarro daughter that the world found easier to understand. She was organized where I was instinctive, credentialed where I was self-taught, legible where I was, in our family's estimation, perpetually difficult to read. She had gone to law school, joined a firm, made partner at 32, bought a condo in River North, and proceeded through the expected milestones of an adult life with the methodical reliability of someone following a map she had drawn herself. I had not followed the map. At 22, one semester from a finance degree I had stopped finding meaningful. I had left university and taken a position managing the front-of-house operations at a small restaurant in Logan Square. My parents had been disappointed in the particular, careful way of people who do not want to show their disappointment, but cannot entirely conceal it. Melissa had been less careful. "You're wasting yourself," she had said, at the family dinner where I announced the decision. "You're smart enough to do something real, and you're choosing this." This, in her voice, carried the weight of everything she considered insufficient. I had chosen this anyway. What I had understood from those first months in that Logan Square restaurant was something that my finance coursework had gestured toward but never quite reached: the extraordinary complexity of running a hospitality business, the intersection of real estate, operations, labor, supply chain, customer experience, and brand that made a restaurant not just a place where food was served, but a complete business ecosystem that most people, looking from the outside, dramatically underestimated. I had found it fascinating in the way that I found very few things fascinating, with the full-body attention of someone who has accidentally discovered the thing they were built to understand. I had spent 9 years understanding it. Navarro Hospitality Group currently held ownership interests in 4 restaurants in Chicago, a boutique hotel in the West Loop, and 2 commercial properties that housed food and beverage tenants I had specifically selected for their alignment with the neighborhoods they occupied. I had built this without announcement, without the kind of visible credential gathering that Melissa's career had involved. No graduation ceremonies, no partnership announcements, no framed achievements on office walls. The building had happened in kitchens and closing documents and late-night operational reviews, and the slow, compounding accumulation of good decisions made with incomplete information which is the only kind of information available when you are building something real. My parents had never fully understood what I was doing. Melissa had maintained, with impressive consistency, that I was floating. I had not corrected either of them because the correction required an explanation, and the explanation required a willingness to listen that I had not always been confident was available. I was reconsidering that confidence now. The lunch had been Melissa's invitation. She called it a catch-up, suggested the restaurant herself, named Linden, a well-regarded new American place in the West Loop that had been receiving consistent critical attention for the past 2 years. I had agreed without comment. I had not mentioned that Linden occupied the ground floor of a mixed-use building I had purchased 3 years ago, or that the restaurant's lease was one of 4 commercial agreements managed by my firm, or that the ownership document at the Cook County Recorder's Office listed Claire Marie Navarro as the deed holder of the property in which we would be having lunch. I had simply agreed and marked it in my calendar. The first 40 minutes of the lunch were the ordinary texture of a meal with Melissa. Her updates about the firm, Andrea's updates about her marketing agency, Patricia's pleasant professional small talk that kept the surface of the table smooth. I contributed where asked. I listened where not. Then Andrea made the mistake that well-meaning people sometimes make. She asked, with genuine curiosity and no awareness of the fault line she was stepping onto, how my work was going. Melissa answered before I could. Claire's between things, she said. As usual, I'm not between things, I said. I have a firm. You have projects, Melissa said. The same word my mother had used. The same intonation. Not quite dismissal, not quite concern. The sound of someone finding a word too small for the space it is being asked to fill. Claire, I say this because I love you. You have been between things and in projects and exploring options since you left school. You are 31 years old. At some point, the exploring has to become arriving somewhere. I've arrived somewhere, I said. She looked at me with the patient expression of someone who has had this conversation before and knows how it ends. Where? What do you have that's real? What do you own? What can you point to? More than you know, I said. The table registered the temperature shift. Andrea's small repositioning, Patricia's renewed interest in her bread plate. Melissa set down her fork. This is exactly what you mean, she said, and her voice had changed. Lower now, more serious, the voice she used in depositions according to someone who had once observed her in court. You always have an answer that sounds like something without being something. You always imply without showing. You take up space in conversations and in rooms and in people's lives and you contribute. She paused. So little. You are a burden, Claire. You always have been. 14 people went carefully still. I looked at my sister. I picked up my water glass and took one slow, deliberate sip, and I waited. His name was Thomas. He was Linden's floor manager, 28 years old, meticulous, possessed of the particular professional instinct that distinguishes genuinely gifted hospitality people from merely competent ones. He had been with the restaurant since before my acquisition of the building, had been retained through the transition because his numbers and his staff's feedback were both excellent, and had met me in person on 3 occasions during lease reviews and 1 building walkthrough. He knew my face. He had seen me walk in. I understood, watching him cross the dining room with the measured pace of someone who had made a decision, that he had been waiting for a moment that felt right. He stopped beside my chair. He leaned down in the way that floor managers do when they want to communicate privately in a public space, close enough for discretion, not so close as to create discomfort. Ems. Navarro, he said quietly. I wanted to make sure your experience today has been everything it should be. We always want to take particular care of our building owner, the 4 nearest people heard him. My sister was one of them. I looked up at Thomas with the genuine warmth I felt toward people who do their jobs with care. "Everything has been wonderful, Thomas," I said. "Please tell the kitchen, the halibut is exceptional today." He smiled. "Chef will be glad to hear it. Please don't hesitate if there's anything you need." He moved away. The silence at the table was the specific silence of a room that has just been rearranged. Andrea was looking at me with an expression of visible recalculation. Something warming, something that had been cool before and was no longer. Patricia had abandoned the bread plate entirely and was looking at me with the direct, assessing attention of a litigator encountering new evidence. Melissa had not moved. She was sitting with her fork suspended above her plate, in the exact position it had been in before Thomas arrived, as though her body had received a signal to pause all non-essential functions while her mind processed what had just occurred. "The building owner," she said finally. The words arrived separately, as though she were testing each one for structural integrity. "The deed has my name on it," I said. "Has for 3 years. This building. The restaurant leases from the property. I'm the landlord, essentially." I set down my water glass. "Among other things." "What other things?" Her voice was different now, stripped of its earlier certainty, carrying instead the careful tone of someone navigating newly uncertain terrain. 4 restaurants in the city. A hotel in the West Loop. 2 additional commercial properties. I kept my voice even. Not triumphant, not cold, just clear. "That's what I have that's real, Melissa. That's what I can point to." Andrea broke the silence first, and I was grateful to her for it, because the silence had reached a density that required someone to move through it. "Claire," she said, and her voice had the warmth of genuine surprise rather than performed graciousness. "I had no idea." "I know," I said. "Why didn't you ever?" "I tried, early on. The conversations didn't go well." I did not look at Melissa when I said this. I didn't need to. After a while, I stopped trying and just kept building. Patricia leaned forwards slightly. She had the focused attention of someone who finds a situation professionally interesting. "Navarro Hospitality Group, is that yours?" "Yes, I've seen the name on commercial filings in the West Loop." She nodded slowly, the nod of someone whose estimate of a person has undergone significant revision. "That's impressive work." "Thank you," I said. Melissa had set her fork down. She was looking at the table, not at me, not at Andrea or Patricia, but at the white linen surface of a table in a restaurant that sat inside a building that belonged to her burden of a sister. I gave her the silence. I did not fill it with anything. She called me 3 days later, Sunday morning, earlier than Melissa typically called anyone, which told me something about the state of the preceding 72 hours. "I've been thinking," she said, without preamble. "I thought you might be," I said. "I was cruel." She said it directly, the way she said everything, without decoration, without the softening, the same voice that had delivered the original words, now carrying different ones. What I said at lunch, it was cruel and it was wrong, and I've been sitting with that, burden, I said. That was the word. A pause. "Yes, that one stays," I said. "I want you to know that, not to punish you with it, just because I think you should know that some words don't leave the way others do." "I know," she said quietly. "I know that." I was quiet for a moment, looking out the window of my apartment, a place I owned, in a building I owned, in a city where I had built something that my sister had never bothered to look at because she had already decided what I was. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "Yes." "When did you decide I was a burden? Was there a moment, or was it just accumulated?" She took a long time to answer. "After Mom and Dad," she said finally. "Our parents had died within 18 months of each other. 4 years ago. Our mother first, then our father, in the particular sequential grief that sometimes follows long marriages. After they were gone, I felt like I was the only one holding things together. The estate, the house, the family obligations. And you were always, she stopped. You were always somewhere else. Doing something I didn't understand. I was building, I said. I was working. I didn't know what that looked like, she said. I couldn't see it, so I filled the space with something easier to believe. That I was taking without giving. Yes, a pause. I was wrong. We are not the same as we were before lunch that Friday. I do not think we will ever be exactly what we might have been if the accumulation of years had gone differently. If she had asked, if I had insisted on being heard, if either of us had found a way through the gap before it became a geography. But we are trying. She came to the hotel opening in the West Loop last spring. Stood in the lobby in the particular way that Melissa stands in rooms she is learning to understand, taking in the details, with the precise attention of a woman who bills in 6-minute increments and knows how to read a document. At one point she stopped in front of the framing wall in the lobby, the one where I had hung the original deed documents and architectural plans. Not as performance, but because I find the paper trail of building things genuinely beautiful. She stood there for a long time. Then she said, without turning around, how long did this take? The hotel specifically, 2 years from acquisition to opening. And before that, the whole thing. From the beginning, 9 years, I said. She turned. 9 years, she repeated. Yes. She looked at me, really looked. The way people look when they are finally adjusting their eyes to a light that has been there for a long time. I missed all of it, she said. You're here now, I said. She nodded, pressed her lips together briefly in the way she did when she was managing something. Then she looked back at the framing wall. Show me the rest, she said. So I did. If someone has ever made you feel like a burden for the life you were quietly building, share this story with them. And if you're on a journey of growth like Claire's, I have something for you in the description. An exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month completely free with access to over 500,000 titles. Stories that change how we see ourselves are waiting. The link is right below. Don't miss it.